Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King. And remember, the goal of this podcast is to help you create that ecosystem of absolute excellence. Whether you are an organizational leader, an educational leader, or just a leader that is really driving a mission or a cause, this episode is for you. This podcast is for you. And today we're going to dive deep into a topic that I believe is absolutely critical for any leader, not just a nonprofit leader, not just a school leader, but any leader that is building a strong board of directors and an empowered leadership team. And why I say this is because in anything that you do, you need a group of individuals that can guide you, that can serve as your accountability partners, that can be your confidants, your team, that can challenge you to be able to reach heights that you didn't even know existed, that can be able to position you in rooms and be able to allow you to uphold the various integral standards and values and expectations that you originally set out to be able to accomplish. All right. So your board of directors isn't just a formality. Your board of directors aren't just people that show up to a few meetings a year. Your board, whether it's a personal board of directors or a professional board of directors, when built with intentionality and managed effectively, is the engine that drives your impact. It's the engine that shapes your strategy. It's the engine that fuels your ability to fundraise, mobilize resources, and be able to really create ripples, these ripples of impact. I love when I was talking to a friend of mine earlier this week on a podcast episode, Nima Farshi, and he explained on that episode how he didn't have this gift to be able to just change and transform in these innovative ideas. But what he believed is that he was gifted in the ability to work within educational institutions and work in schools and use his gift to create ripples for the next person to be that surgeon, for the next person to be that inventor, for the next person to be that innovator. And why it's important for him to even recognize that is because he's had a board of directors around him that has allowed him to just transform the educational industry. And in this episode, I'm going to walk you through five practical steps to recruit, to retain, and to ultimately grow what I call better board members. And today we're going to cover, again, five things. We're going to cover assessing your current state. All right. Assessing your current state, clarifying your mission and values. You always have to clarify those mission and values. And then number three, how we are able to map out the roles based upon people's strengths and abilities. Number four, aligning your board with the organizational goals and priorities. And then number five is creating a growth plan. And I think all of these things are important. And as always, I'll give you reflective tools and exercises, real life examples, actionable tips, so that you can't just build a board, so that you, again, can retain a board and that you can grow a board so that you can be able to empower these leaders to be able to show up as their absolute best in every situation so that you can be able to create the impact that you want to be able to create in the first place. So before we dive in, I want to give you a few seconds to grab a pen and paper. And what I want you to do is I want you to take notes this episode. I want you to take notes. And I'm going to take you through a very similar activity than what we take our clients through within the Culture Lab. And I'm going to take you through a 5-step process. And before we can do that, I want to just tell a story. So as you're grabbing your pen, as you're grabbing something for you to be able to take notes, I want to be able to walk you through a specific moment in my career that I believe has not only defined a lot of how I see things, but has also been pivotal in what I'm going to talk about today and what advice I give a lot of organizational leaders, nonprofit founders, and just individuals in general that are on their journeys to being able to create something impactful, intentional, and effective. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine that is doing some phenomenal work in the nonprofit space throughout the state of North Carolina, and she's in the process of recruiting board members. She's in the process of recruiting board members because she was explaining to me that she was having a challenge with not just finding board members, but her process was putting a job posting out potentially on Indeed and LinkedIn that, hey, we're needing board members. And she would get an influx of people that would show up for interviews, and she would even, what she's found in the past is that she would even believe that some of these individuals were amazing. She even brought some of these individuals to join her board. And potentially, like roughly a year or two later, what she realized as we were talking is that many of the board members were just not the right fit. They weren't the right fit for the organization. They weren't aligned in regards to values. And looking at my notes, how she put it is that they didn't want to work. They had misaligned values. And simply put, they just were not the best fit for her organization. And what I meant in regards to misaligned values is that she would look on various social media sites, and she would see certain viewpoints on various topics that she didn't necessarily, or the organization didn't agree with. People wouldn't show up to board meetings. They wouldn't contribute. And they were very one foot in, one foot out. And what I call that in business is they had hokey pokey leadership. They had one foot in and one foot out. And they shook it all about, and they was doing the hokey pokey and turned themselves around. And that's not what it's all about, people. That is not what it's all about. So what we're going to talk about today is for you to not have that type of experience. I want you to be able to get in your mind that a board of directors is critical in you growing really anything. You growing an educational institution, you growing a nonprofit organization, you growing your own professional capacity, you growing your own influence, you growing anything that you're doing. It is critical, absolutely critical, for you to be able to have people around you that can guide you and assist you in ensuring that you are connected to your mission, ensuring that you are being held to a standard and held accountable, but being able to be those thought leaders in the room so that you can be able to grow that movement, that mission, and be able to create monuments of success. And going back to the colleague that I was explaining earlier, she recommended, and I asked, I was like, how are you even finding these board members? Or what I recommended to her, I was like, hey, you need a process. You need some type of framework or a rubric based upon how you're assessing these people. And she said, I have one, and it works. It's really great. It's one of the things that she received from the state of North Carolina based upon some training that she went through the state. And I simply, came back to her and I was like, look, if it's not working, if you can't find board members and you don't have a full board, then it's clearly not effective. And either it's a leadership problem, or it's a processing issue. So after that conversation, I really reflected, and I wanted to be able to come in this conversation and be very just frank with you all. If you are building something and it's not working, you either have a processing issue or a personnel issue. And if you are the leader, then the issue is probably you. And that's just the harsh truth. If you are in leadership position and you are not hitting the goals, the metrics, and your team is not producing the results that you desire, then you are the problem. And how you recruit, how you interview, how you retain, or your lack thereof retention, I put that weight and that responsibility on you in totality. But you're not in this alone. That's why I'm here. And the first step in building a better board is first understanding your starting point. You can't fix what you don't know. That's in anything. And the reality of it is that most boards have potholes, challenges that keep them from functioning at their highest level. And some of these misconceptions and common issues that I see, number one, is misaligned priorities, like we were talking about earlier. lack of engagement or attendance. They feel like this is not a priority on their list. Okay. Number 3 is overlapping roles. They just really don't have the time or capacity. Number 4 is that they have weak fundraising participation. They're not doing anything on the board to be able to bring the board value from a time, talent, and treasure perspective. And then number 5 is that the processes and systems that don't support them efficiently or effectively, a standard wasn't communicated, a behavior wasn't mirrored, and that's why people aren't truly bought in. So when you think of those 5 challenges, I want you to take a moment and just reflect, and this is where you bring out your pen and paper. I want you to ask yourself what is working. And then I want you to think about what isn't. I want you to think about your current board of directors. What are the biggest challenges that you're experiencing? And let's make this personal as well as professional. I'm going to bridge the two together today. If you need a board of directors personally, what are some of the challenges that you are experiencing in your life that if you had people to be able to guide, support, or hold you accountable to a specific set of standards or expose you to a specific set of information, then you wouldn't be in that position. Now, as a professional, I want you to, again, think about your current board. What are the biggest challenges that you're experiencing? Now, as you think about that, and as you write a few things down, as you jot down some notes, number 2, which processes, programs, or systems need to be 3 things: started, stopped, or shifted? Started, stopped, or shifted. I think oftentimes we feed our ego by starting multiple things and hoping that one thing sticks. When that happens, though, we don't ever give anything the amount of time and the amount of intention, the resource, and the runway for it to really be able to take off and really be successful. With planes, any plane, you need enough runway so that you can get enough speed so that when you pull up the lever, it can be able to get off the ground. With the level, with the amount of weight on the plane, with the size of the plane, all of those different things. Every plane has a different amount or requires a different amount of runway. So when you think about the weight or the size of the dream that you are working to accomplish, how much runway do you need? And it may require you to go deeper in the program that you have and have a signature program, a signature model, a signature framework, rather than just having all of these ideas out and you kind of just shooting darts blindfolded. Question number 3 to reflect on. I want you to be able to be honest about your gaps. And what are some of the wins that you need to celebrate? What are the wins that you need to celebrate? For example, one board I work with had an incredible fundraising ability and talent, but 0 strategic thinkers. They were very reactive, not proactive. And by mapping out what was actually happening versus what they needed, what we identified is a lot of gaps, a lot of potholes, a lot of room for improvement, a lot of bridges is what I like to call it, a lot of space in between where I am and where I'm supposed to go. And what happened is that we brought in strategic board members with complementary skills. And within a year, their annual revenue increased. Their annual revenue increased by 30%. So once you understand where you are, it's time to then clarify where you're going. Once you understand where you are, it's time to clarify where you're going. So let's move to step 2. A board that that understands or believes in your mission can effectively champion it, but a board that doesn't cannot. If a board member does not believe in your mission, your vision, and your values and where you're taking people, then they don't deserve to be there. So in step 2, it's all about clarifying your mission and your unique value that you're providing the industry that you are called to be able to serve. So I want you to ask yourself another set of questions. Number one, what sets your organization apart? Number two, why did you even start in the first place? Like, how has your mission evolved? And I want you to really get clear about your story. This is where we talk about that why, that pain, that challenge, that obstacle, that barrier that you experienced or had or saw. Why did you start? Why did you start? And how has your mission evolved since you did start? Maybe at the beginning you just wanted to tutor, but now you have academic programming that empowers a certain subset of students or a certain demographic of individuals. And when you think about this, what have you achieved? And where are you going in the next 3 to 5 years? What have you achieved and where are you going in the next 3 to 5 years? One of the things that I always talk about on the Contagious Culture podcast when I think about board members and individuals on your team is, who are your superstars? Who are your superstars? Those board members or staff who are driving impact. And I learned this concept by a good friend of mine, Dr. Daniel Freeman, who is the chief giving officer or the chief advancement officer at Gaston College. And he talked about this concept of superstars, those people that are going above and beyond, that are killing it on your team. Like, who are those people that are really, really driving impact? And how can we recruit? How can we ensure that those people are retained? And how can we duplicate their processing so that we can be able to continue to create results within our organization? Who are these people? When I think about one nonprofit that clarified their unique story, connecting it directly to the donor communications, their board then could speak more confidently to their supporters. And then we began to see an increase in major gifts every single year. So I want you to make sure every single board member on your team, in your organization, can answer a very simple question. Why does this organization exist? Why should I care? Because if they can't, it's time for some mission alignment. It's time for some mission alignment. So the goal of today's episode is to give you things to clarify, to give you things to think about, and then give you these steps. So step one is for you to be able to assess your current state. You need to audit. Step two is for you to clarify your mission and your unique value. And then step three is, I want you to map out roles and strengths. Put it in the chat section if you have any questions as you're mapping out your roles and strengths. There are some key board roles that you often need. I talked about this in an earlier episode, I think maybe 20 or 30 episodes ago. And step three is where I believe most boards struggle. It's about aligning people with strengths. Not every board member is suited for every role. Not every person is suited to be on a board. If we can just normalize to this a behavior of stopping, can we normalize stop inviting people to boards that are your friends and have no direct impact that they can bring to the board? If you don't need that skill, that person may have all the accolades, that person may have all of the accomplishments, that person may be an amazing human being, but what are the strategic things that we need to be able to grow this organization? It's not about your buddies being on the board and them just having a seat. It's about being able to bring on people that are in alignment with where we are so that they can be able to fill the gaps that we need to be able to fill. So there's a few people that I always think through that I believe every board needs. And if you are not one of these people, or you have a lot of one, I believe at least one person, there needs to be at least one person per these lists that I'm going to give. So number one is a community engager, somebody that is simply a building a relationship person and nurtures support. That's number one. Number two is a strategic thinker. Every single board needs to have somebody that can think through organizational goals and potential fundraising opportunities or strategies or developmental opportunities and strategies. Number three is a designer. You need somebody that can create collateral. This could be an advisor on the board. It doesn't have to be somebody with the specific board seat, but you need somebody that is creative and intuitive. Number four is a storyteller, a communicator, somebody that can share the mission and impact effectively in a clean and concise way. This would be potentially somebody in the PR field or somebody that has direct relationship with the impact that you all are driving as an organization. The next role is a data manager. We have to be able to track, but we also have to be able to analyze outcomes, especially when we think about involving ourselves with donors as well. We have to have somebody that can manage, analyze, but then also, again, like I said, with the storyteller, somebody that can communicate the story that the data is telling us. The next one is an event planner, or what I call an experience designer, somebody that designs memorable experiences for not just donors that are currently in our network, but then also people that are aware and wanting to continue to stay engaged with what we're trying to do as well. And then again, a leader and a motivator that can inspire the team and ensure alignment with the mission. Now, we always have our treasurer, we always have the chairman, and all of those great titles. But when we think about the types of people and skill sets, I believe everybody needs to have these, again, skill sets. So I want you to just pause again for a second. Which roles are currently filled? Which are missing or underrepresented? And are any of these skills being underutilized? Like when I think about specifically a board that I used to even sit on, we didn't have the skill set on our board to be able to drive some of the change that we needed to be able to see as a school. We didn't. And that's why there were a lot of challenges and tension that we experienced, because we didn't have all of the minds on the board. We had great individuals. We had great people, committed people. But your board needs to be tight. Your board has to be strong, so then these individuals that are leading these board initiatives can then recruit great leaders that can then recruit great team members that can then recruit. You see, it trickles down from the board. So we have to be able to map roles. And it's not about hierarchy, it's about fit. When people operate in their zone of genius and their strengths, everybody wins. So when we think about this, now we have these skills, we have mapped out roles and strengths, and then it's that board, it's now to align the board and the team with goals. Now, once we have the people or we understand the people, now we have to connect those individuals with the people that we need. So step 4 about aligning board and team with goals is all about organizational priorities and ensuring that we're measuring the specific outcomes that we want to be able to achieve as an organization. So a strong board doesn't just show up. They don't. They contribute. They contribute their thoughts. They contribute their leadership. They contribute their resources. They contribute their ability to be able to make an impact. They contribute something so that it directly contributes to results. So I want you to ask yourself a few questions. What are the 3 top priorities of the organization this year? And how can your board align with those? How can these new skills align with those priorities? Number 2, how can you connect to strengths and these measurable outcomes? That is one question that I ask every single person that wants to join our board is, look, how can you connect their strengths to what we're trying to accomplish with these measurable outcomes? And then the next question is, what systems or processes are needed so that we can be able to work effectively together as a team? Write down your organization's top priorities and then map the specific board members that you have so that you can best position those priorities. And look, what will happen is that you'll have priorities and then you'll have team members and then you'll recognize there's gaps. So then go get more board members. All right. Step 5, and then we're going to close it out. Step 5 is all about growth. I want you to create a growth plan. I want you to create a growth plan because a strong board evolves. They are not static. It shouldn't be the same people on the board for 6 years, 10 years. It shouldn't. I want you to think about recruitment. I want you to think about training. I want you to think about recognition. But I want you to think about moving these people off, training the next generation of board members, and then being able to continue to keep that cycle of innovation and creation happening. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down 3 actionable steps to strengthen your board this year. And then I want you to identify members who are needed, but then also members that require some coaching and then some support. I want you to get it done. I want to know what you learned. I want to know what you learned, what gaps we were able to fill today on today's episode. And here's your actionable step. I want you to first remember that a strong board doesn't just happen. It's built. So I want you to assess, I want you to align, and I want you to grow intentionally. And what you'll see at your organization is the impact will fast track, and the people that you are called to serve will be impacted for generation to generation to generation to come. I want you to reflect this week, audit what you're currently doing, and be able to create a plan for you to be able to achieve amazing results. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, I want you to share the episode with your board. I want you to share it with your leadership team. And I want you to share it with other fellow educators, nonprofit leaders, or organizational leaders. And as always, baby, keep leading, keep building, and keep becoming contagious in your culture. One of the things that I always ask is, what type of culture are you spreading? The energy you bring is the culture you create. Make yours worth catching. We'll see you all next episode.